Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to have a little new chief chat here. Let's just start this off with what's your name, what's your agency, just so people can get to know you.
Sure. Well, thanks. Thanks for meeting. Thanks for inviting me. My name's Roy Selvik. I'm with the Addison Police Department. Been with Addison for going on close to 21 years now. I actually started with the Addison Police Department as an intern. I went to Elmhurst College, and I was fortunate to get hooked up with an internship program at the college, and found my way to Addison Police Department, where I spent a semester here getting to know everybody. And ironically, they were testing at the same time. So I said, you know what, why not? I'm getting ready to graduate, and I've been here ever since.
That's fantastic. Do you guys still have the internship program over at Addison?
We do. We do. We still use, so I went to Elmhurst College. We still have, occasionally we'll have students from Elmhurst College, but then we also have a number of other colleges, universities. We work with Western quite a bit.
That's great. How many interns do you say you have pretty much every semester, do you think?
Usually we'll have at least one every semester, sometimes two.
And how often do they do like you did, which sign up and take the test?
Once in a great while, we'll see them again. We try to keep them. It's nice because it kind of gives them a little edge, a little leg up when they start. They get to know everybody, learn the process a little bit, learn the department. They kind of, get to see, hey, is this a good fit for me or not?
So you told me a little bit about your background when it comes to your college and doing the internship and stuff like that. Did you graduate with a bachelor's or a master's? How did your education background come around?
Sure. So I graduated with a bachelor's from Elmhurst. I majored in sociology and psychology, and then came to work for Addison Police Department. And then it's probably about almost 7 years ago, I went back to school and got a master's in public safety administration. And
What
I
was
went to Lewis University.
what was the big impetus to have you go back to college?
I just wanted to keep on trying to move my career a little further along. And, I put it off long enough. I actually wanted to get it going a couple of years sooner. And I said, you know what, enough's enough. It's time to go back. If I want to keep trying to learn more, keep being a sponge, taking as much as I can.
So is this something you try to push with your officers as well, since it's done so well for you and really pushed your career along? Is this something you try to push for your officers a little bit earlier on, since you kind of regretted not doing it earlier on yourself?
Ironically, I do. Yeah, I just had this conversation with a couple of them. We had got a couple supervisors that did the exact same thing I did. They're like, "Yeah, one day I'll get to it." And then it's so finally I said, "Okay, that day has come. Let's go. It's time to get going, get back." So now they've signed up and they're going back.
That's great. Have they stayed with the department or moved on, or how has that happened for them?
No, they're still with the department.
That's great. Then even have even better officers on your team. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's a great investment. We actually have a great tuition reimbursement program through the village. So it works out really good. It's just a matter of putting a little time, a little bit of their own money, and it's a great education.
So tell me a little bit about the tuition reimbursement. I'm sure potential officers would want to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so our village has been fantastic with always trying to get village employees, police officers, everyone to go back and further their education. So when I did it back a few years back, it was they cover about 75% of the tuition costs. That's gone down a little bit since then. We got put on hold for a little while, and then our village manager actually decided he wanted to bring it back. So they still cover the majority of the cost, though.
That's fantastic. Even close to 75%, even more than 50% is quite the feat. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
This podcast is sponsored by Calumet College of St. Joseph. Looking for a college that understands your career in public safety? The Public Service Institute at Calumet College of St. Joseph delivers real-world, career-focused education built by and for public servants, 100% online. Start today at ccsj.edu/psi.
So I'm going to get down into the nitty-gritty with really into the police work questions. When did you get your start as a police chief?
So actually, I'm pretty recent to police chief. I got promoted to chief on December 18th of 2023.
But you've been in law enforcement for quite some time. How many years total then?
So almost 21. I got hired in 2003. and did a few years on patrol, went to investigations as a school resource officer, and then actually spent most of my career in investigations in one capacity or another as a detective, detective sergeant, detective commander for a number of years, and then got promoted to deputy chief. And my former boss did 45 years here, and he's was getting ready to go. So actually, he took me under his wing quite a bit, and I learned a lot from him to help get ready for the position.
What was his name again?
So Bill Hayden.
Bill Hayden. That's
Yep,
great. So you would say he would be your biggest mentor then.
he was. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what part of your law enforcement career have you liked the most, aside from chief, obviously? But you said you did a lot of different areas. You did school resource, you did investigations, detective work, things like that. Where does your heart lie besides being a chief?
I think it lies mostly within investigations, but I enjoyed. I didn't do it for very long, but I enjoyed patrol sergeant quite a bit. It was you kind of had your own team, especially I would being lower in seniority as a sergeant. I was on midnights. I had some of the younger officers, but they were very just aggressive, fun to be around. Really enjoyed the job, and I actually really enjoyed that time. Probably more than anything was working midnight shifts and having my own team of go-getters.
That's fantastic. You say that was also a great time, but originally you said your investigation is probably where your heart lies. What drew you to investigations?
No, it was opportunity. We had a lot of turnover at the time that I got hired. There was a lot of movement going on. There were some vacancies in investigations. Um, I had never actually thought about. I started there as a school resource officer. Never actually thought about it. But they said, you know what? I didn't have kids at the time. I think it would help more if I had my own kids at the time, but I gave it a shot, and actually I enjoyed it a lot. I did it for a few years, and then got moved over to investigations as a full-time detective.
What made you want to be in law enforcement just in general? Was it something from your childhood that you can kind of draw back to or anything like that?
So it was definitely my dad. He was in law enforcement. He worked for Bensenville Police Department. Was there until 2000 when he retired as deputy chief. And but I think from the age of like 8, I knew what I wanted to do. Yeah, ironically, he tried to talk me out of it a few times. He said, "No, no, let's look at something else, do something else." Like, no, this is what I want to do. So it's one of the few kids in my school that would go out on a weekend on a ride along with them, and but that's what really got my passion going for it.
That's really special and that you could share that, but at the same time, interesting that your dad was like, "Oh, are you sure about this?"
Yeah, no, I think deep down at the end when I told him what I wanted to do, he couldn't have been happier.
How about your other friends and family? How did they react once they found out that this was actually going to be a thing for you? You were actually going to go into law enforcement.
Very supportive. Very supportive. I have a younger brother who's a fireman, so there is a lot of trash talking that goes on quite a bit. As he,
I think they're always.
yeah. But no, very very supportive. It's come from, like I said, law enforcement family, and they couldn't have been more happy.
That's great. And is this is kind of a hard question, but is the job everything you envisioned it to be that you thought it was going to be when you were really thinking about it growing up?
Yeah, it is. It definitely was when I started. Um, it was probably a lot. I think there was a lot more involved that I wasn't aware of. Just with community relations and building partnerships and working with other agencies at the county and state level and different task force groups and things like that. And obviously it's evolved quite a bit over the past 20 years to what it is today. But I think for the most part, it's what I expected.
What's been the biggest challenge that's something you didn't think it would be a challenge earlier on? Like, say, is it social media and that whole aspect? Or is there something else that probably you didn't envision to be kind of such a hurdle for you?
I would say, well, I can think of two. One of the biggest challenges we deal with as an agency actually is social media. It's very, very difficult, especially in the schools. I was at the time that I was a school resource officer, it was just kind of picking up more and more. But since then, it's our detectives and our SROs right now deal with it constantly on a daily basis. It's just the amount of of bullying and issues and, threats that really aren't threats. They get interpreted as threats and we have to investigate them. A lot of it just comes out of social media. And so, we're seeing it really, really change our youth and our students quite a bit. And I'd say internally, the other thing is dealing with morale and retention. As the last couple of years have been a little rough with law enforcement, but I do think it is bouncing back. We're seeing that pendulum start to swing the other way a little bit, but for a while it's trying to keep officers motivated, and when I say motivated, just making them feel like they're supported, letting them know that, hey, just go out and continue to do your job, and we're going to continue to support you. And it was a hard message to convey when you had so much of the country unfortunately saying or pushing out a different message.
Yeah. Well, how did you keep them motivated? Was there any special thing that you used? Maybe you bought them all a nice massage chair for the lounge. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I think the massage chairs ended up at my brother's firehouse. No, we had no, it was just a lot of communication, and not just email communication. There's so much that gets lost in email and texting, and it really was just kind of going around, hitting roll calls, doing ride-alongs with officers, just talking to them, because it's sometimes a lack of communication is the biggest issue we face, because cops are in a way they're similar to media sometimes, where if there's gaps they're going to fill it in, and if there's a lot of negative discussion and there really isn't anything to counter that, then cops they get together after calls, they sit car to car, and they start talking, and next thing you know, those gaps get filled in. So no, one of the things that worked for us was just direct communication, going, riding around, talking to them, being part of all the in-house training that admin usually doesn't have to be at, but no, going to those anyway, and just spending an 8-hour class with them and talking to them, and trying to break some of the the bad rumors that fly around.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a different aspect of social media, but not media.
Yep.
Just the social aspect of it that can be a challenge.
Yeah, so true.
You talked about recruitment and retention. I know that is a big issue statewide. Would you say that is the biggest problem facing law enforcement today, or is there a different issue that you see kind of rising up as the biggest one?
I think it's still an issue. I don't think it's as bad as it was a couple years ago, but it is still an issue because it's nowhere near what it used to be. We just ran a police officer test, and I think the time that I got hired, you would see 150, 200, plus easily taking the test, and now we have an eligibility list of 56 people. So it came down. It's coming back a little bit, but I think still trying to keep that recruitment and retention part going. Along with the retention, we're starting to see a little bit is there is a change in I want to say the overall retention and career path of especially some of the younger officers, where when I got in, there was no question, it's a career. I'm doing 25, 30 years. We don't see that as much. I think some of the younger officers don't really view it that way. It's more of a job, and that could be a good thing sometimes too. I mean, I spent too much time at work years ago, whereas I think some of the younger generation, they have it balanced out a little better. But it's a job, and it's not necessarily something that their heart is in. Oh, I'm going to do this for 25, 30 years. It's more, hey, I'm going to do this for a few years and see how it goes. And I may want to go somewhere else, or I may want to do something else, or I'm not necessarily that dedicated to spending 30 years working midnights or holidays or anything else. I'm just going to kind of play this out a little bit. So it's we do see that difference. And we tried our best to kind of adapt to it a little bit, because like I said, the younger generations every time I go to a class, they always get beaten up on. It's like, oh, the kids, these generations, all they want is they just value their time. They just want to be at home. They don't want, and you hear that over and over and over again. And it is to some degree, I think it is true, but I don't think it's 100% a bad thing, because I think they have a better work-life balance than I know I did when I first got hired. And the number of cops that I worked with that I watched, have issues and get divorces, and, all because their entire life was just work, and how much overtime I can possibly do. So it is it's not a bad thing, but it is a challenge that we have to kind of deal with and mold ourselves around a little bit.
Yeah, I've been seeing that a lot too with the generational differences, and it really changes how you have to really manage a team, how you have to be a chief. You've got to kind of have a different management style for the older generation to the, not so old generation to the young generation. You have to look at it completely different and try to relate to them on completely different levels. It can be very difficult to do, at least from what I've seen and what I've heard from people. So yeah, that's definitely going to be an issue. Overall, what would you say your management style is?
Management style overall, I try to lead by example. I would say it's definitely not, it's not authoritarian. There is a time, when we have an incident or something where you do have to follow that paramilitary style, and there has to be, chain of command and things being passed on down. But really, my style is just open door. It's just, hey, we're in this together. There is no, I don't like, dealing in rank. I don't like dealing with, titles. It's just, we have meetings or something. It's just everybody legitimately has a voice at the table because, I've learned over the years quite a bit that if I want to do something, but I have 5 or 6 people with a different opinion saying we shouldn't do that, I know where the problem is, and it's not them. So it's you have to listen and not just too many. I think I've seen too many people get caught up in the titles where it's just, this is what I want. We're going to do it this way because it's, because I'm the chief or I'm the deputy chief or I'm the commander. And and the reality is I do not have anywhere near the answers, but I know the people that do. I know the people in our department that have the answers, and they're the ones that really kind of they steer the ship. I can rely on them. So it is completely open door. It's meetings, anything can be said. At the end of it, we'll come up with a common message to push out, but to really try to get input and to get value. And I think some of that actually goes hand in hand a little bit when we talk about that younger generation, because I have noticed they want to be valued. They also want to, explanations to things sometimes. But getting that little bit of that value, that buy-in from them, having them, give input to something and actually be heard. Say, oh, they're taking my opinion, they're listening to it. It goes a long way, for morale and for retention and just for the overall benefit of the department.
That's amazing. I like that management style personally. I've dealt with a little too many authoritarian type people who they do that all the time and there's no break in it. And I'm like, oof, this is a little rough. But no, the open door policy, in my opinion, is always going to be the best policy. What do you like most about being a chief?
I think it's the interactions. I enjoy talking with, a lot of the officers in the department, networking with a lot of other chiefs, other agencies in the county, and just having those opportunities to kind of branch out even further. It's, you learn so much more. You kind of get not isolated, but you come up within an agency, and we have an agency of 70 sworn, 40,000 people in the village. And so you're kind of used to this little environment of, and this is your entire world. And all of a sudden, as you work your way up through the ranks, that world starts to open up more and more, and you're working with other agencies and entities and, people at the county level and people at the state level. And now in this position, it's bigger than ever. And you realize there's a whole world out there that you never even knew existed. And there are a lot of chiefs out there that are doing things a heck of a lot better than you are that you can now get to learn from.
Yeah, the mentorship capabilities between different departments and different chiefs is amazing, especially for new chiefs out there. The Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, we've got this mentorship program. I'm not sure if you've signed up for it or anything like that, but we have a mentorship program with, we take some of our retired chiefs or, a chief who's been around for maybe 30 years as a chief, and they'll go ahead and we'll connect them with the right type of new chief who's from a similar area or who similar sized department. We try to pair them up so they can kind of help walk them through that first year of some of the common things they might run into and things like that. So that's mentorship is a big thing for the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police. And I hope that's something that more new chiefs are going to get on board with as well, because we just want to help. That's one of the things that we like to do too. So
no, I did see that, and no, I think it's a fantastic, and I haven't signed up for it yet, but I'm going to.
I was going to say, the leader, you spoke briefly about the mentor that you admire most. Did you want to go back to that and just tell me a little bit more about who your favorite mentor was or who you admire the most?
So my favorite well, I really have two if I can break it up. I mean, my very first mentor ever would be my father. I think I learned the most from him, just value-based, morale, learning how to treat people, the right way. And then I think professionally, after getting this position, it is my former chief, Bill Hayden, who just taught me an absolute ton about how to balance out leading a department, but also being, human at the same time, and just, not being afraid to take chances, not being afraid to support, even when, there is risk involved. But that's ultimately what it's about. You assume a very difficult role sometimes, for the betterment of the agency.
Now moving on to police officers, what do you think makes a good police officer for somebody who is thinking about joining the force? What makes a good police officer?
It's somebody who is genuine, um, who has that strong value base, who is the type of person that will do the right thing when nobody's looking. And I know it sounds kind of cliche, but you see people come in to this job because they know it's a great job. They want to be the police, but then at the same time, you'll see certain officers that will, only do things because they want to better their career, they want to make a name for themselves, or the ones that I truly truly admire that get noticed on their own without them having to do anything are the ones that believe in what they're doing every day. They're human. They're the good people of the world. They're not afraid to cry. They're not afraid to mask their feelings because they think it's a macho profession. I'm going to be looked down upon. No, they're just genuine good people. And it goes a long way because then they can relate to many of the calls that they go on. And most of them will go that extra step to try to comfort somebody instead of just being a report taker, getting ready to move on to the next exciting call or something. The ones that genuine person who's just a good person, I absolutely will take a team of them all day long.
I think empathy is so important, and it's probably at the core of some of the things that you were just mentioning is just being able to be empathetic with people. I think it's just really at the core of a good officer and a good chief, and a good leadership style. So empathy and good moral character is definitely it's up there.
Yeah, I agree.
Just going to switch gears just a little bit. How long have you been a member of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police?
I want to say probably almost 4 years. Probably since I got promoted to deputy chief. I got promoted to deputy chief in 2020.
What programs have you kind of taken advantage of as being a member, or what have you seen as some of the biggest advantages of being a member of the association?
I definitely think it's the networking. Like I said before, you have just a incredible amount of resources at your fingertips. As a DC, I didn't really dive into that too much because I always had a direct supervisor who was heavily involved, and I got a lot of answers I needed. But I will tell you, being in this position, it is an incredible comfort, knowing that resource is out there and fully taking advantage of. Because again, it goes back to I think sometimes we become a product of our environment, and we're so used to doing things a certain way that we don't know anything different. And until you actually kind of get outside that comfort zone and realize that there are a lot of other ways and a lot of them better, you just don't understand that they're there. And I think that's what Illinois Chiefs really brings, is that ability to kind of branch out and talk to other people and learn from other chiefs and say, hey, how did you handle this, or what did you do with this, or I've got a really strange one, how do you think I should handle this? It's an unbelievable resource.
It really is. And if you haven't taken advantage of it yet, this isn't just for you, but for anybody else who may be listening who is a member, but we have our membership only forum where people can just post whatever question they have, and then it goes out to all the members. And if anybody has an answer, they'll chime in, they'll jump in there and say, hey, this is the policy I have, or this is what I've dealt with. And that's been an incredible resource. Just again, for those who might just be listening to this podcast or this video on YouTube, just to let people know that we've also got that opportunity up there. It's a great thing for the networking and for everything else that you were talking about to really widen the world. Let's see, any other information out there you'd like members or listeners to know about you that maybe I haven't asked about or brought up?
No, I think you covered a lot of it. I really have been blessed in this position, this department. We have a very, very supportive village, as many agencies do, very supportive community. And you don't realize the value in having that supportive community until you do start to get in that position a little bit. You see a lot of unfortunate incidents throughout the country, and I think a lot of them didn't really have a lot of that solid community base in there. So there is a strong investment in community support. And, we're working to try to gear a lot of things we do towards that, bringing some programs back, trying to get out there more and just promote the positive side of law enforcement a little bit. So much of what we do, obviously the negative side of things really gets the attention. But I think overall, and, my goal is to do our part. And a lot of chiefs are in the same position, but really pushing out the positive work that police officers do, because 99.9% of them are in it for the right reasons.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today, Chief. I know you've got another appointment or another meeting to get to, so I really appreciate you making the time, and it was a pleasure to get to know you, and I hope to see you soon.
You too. Thanks so much, AJ.